Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are at 3:33 actually. So thank you all for joining us for our first ever Spark Community of Practice. Today, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Ilana Grissom. Dr. Grissom brings an extraordinary depth of knowledge and experience in the field of special education. She holds a master's degree in educational administration and a PhD in educational psychology from the Oklahoma State University. She has dedicated over 40 years to education, serving as a teacher, principal, district leader, and project manager at the Oklahoma State Department of Education. She continues to shape future educators as an adjunct faculty member at Northeastern State University, and today she will be presenting on collaboration in special ed. We are so thankful to have Dr. Grissom as well as everyone in the audience with us today. Any questions before we get started? Okay, go ahead, Dr. Grissom.
Thank you, Rachel. That's hard to follow. I hope I live up to the expectations. I'm going to do a disclaimer real fast. I hope you guys will be tolerant and give me grace. I was setting up my PowerPoint and I'm not able to see the notes that I've made. So I've got to use the PowerPoints to guide me through this. But I hope this will be information that you find useful. Rachel was telling me that when she's out at the school sites, a lot of what she hears are issues regarding working with paras. And I was telling Rachel, I remember the first time I was assigned a para, I was real happy to have the help in the classroom, but I had absolutely no experience in supervising another adult in the classroom. Fortunately, I had a really nice lady who was working with me. She was about 10 years older, and I was really pretty young at that time. And she started the day by asking me what I needed of her that day. So it really made me realize that while we're partners in this classroom relationship, I'm really in charge. And the responsibility ultimately falls on me. So I want you to bear that in mind as we work through this PowerPoint together. Also, we're going to talk about collaboration with parents and collaborating with general education teachers, which also can be pretty tricky. So first, I want to talk about what collaboration is. Collaboration is really important to foster a supportive and successful learning environments for our students. We want all the adults involved with students to be partners in this educational journey we have with our students. Working together is going to better ensure that the students' needs are met, and collaborating, working together will build strong communication, not only with your parents, but also with parents and other teachers. And this will be noticed by students, and that really fosters the respect that they give you and the other adults. So collaboration with parents, the first thing is that we're really seeing more and more paras in the classroom. We're seeing students with greater and greater needs. So the need for paras is growing. We know that when paras and teachers work well as a team, it really enhances and supports the learning for students. Whether the experience for the student is positive or negative, it really has a direct impact on the learning environment. I've been in classrooms where you can feel the strain between the teacher and the paraprofessional. And some of you may have felt that working as a para. And no, students feel that too. Even if they can't put their finger on where the stress is coming from, they feel it. I think of kids as having little barometers in their bodies, and the more stress there is in the environment, the more likely they are to act out. So when you're working with a parent, get to know them, find out about them, show interest in them. This conveys a respect and really starts off a positive attitude. If you know somebody's interested in you and they care about you, you're more likely to want a strong, pleasant relationship with them. And I know if I have a supervisor who I like and respect, I'm going to work harder for them. And that's really human nature. We see that the same thing with kids. They work harder for teachers that they believe in them, and they believe have high expectations. So really the relationship is everything. And remember, your para comes to you with experiences and skills. And Rachel shared with me that some of you had been para, so you know when you entered that classroom, maybe you've worked in another learning environment as a teacher's aide, or as maybe in a preschool or Sunday school, or as a parent, you've got skills and you brought those skills with you when you came to that classroom. And so it's important as a teacher that we realize that the skills that our para brings to the classroom can be valuable resources. And we just need to find out the right place for them to use those skills. It's important that you communicate to your para that you're a team. Okay, we're working together, and we want the rest of the school to see that we're a team. We want parents to see that we're also a team, so that when they talk about you, they talk about your para as team members. You know, it's much more difficult for a parent to triangulate, to get in the middle of that teacher-para relationship if the teacher and the parent, or the teacher and the para, are speaking to one another and have a strong bond, a strong relationship. And I'm not saying you should be best friends and eat your lunch together every day. That's nice if you have that relationship. That's wonderful. But have a great working relationship. I always say there are people I want to work with, and there are people that I want to have as a neighbor. They're not always the same people, if you know what I mean. So think about having a relationship, a professional relationship where the communication is open and friendly. Also, talk about your work style or your preferences. I'm not a morning person. So really, even my students knew I wasn't a morning person, and I had administrative assistants who would say, yeah, she's not a morning person. If you really want her ear, go in the morning, because she's a good listener in the morning. But if you want her to brainstorm with you, wait till about 10 o'clock. So understand that everybody has their styles, and some of them have to do with whether or not you're a morning person, whether or not you're an afternoon person, whether or not you're a neatnik, whether or not you're sloppy, whether or not you like a lot of noise and activity in the classroom, or maybe you prefer a softer, calmer environment. Make that clear to your para what your style is, and recognize that they also have their own styles, and you might have to work with that. Okay, but if you cultivate the differences instead of the similarities, you're going to have some interpersonal problems. So have conversations about the issues that are important to you, like punctuality, classroom organization. For some people, punctuation is more important than organization. For me, I'm going to tell you, if you're 5 minutes late, I don't care as long as you're organized. Okay, some people have very authoritarian supervision styles, and they want their kids to be seated in rows and, yes, ma'am, no, sir. And others are much more fluid and much more relaxed in the classroom. Just be clear what your style is, and that you expect your para to work within that style. But be clear. It's helpful if there's a job description that includes some basic guidelines before the para takes the job. That way they know what they're getting into. So you could create a list of responsibilities. If you're starting a new job description, like some districts have people design the job description or updated job description annually, get your para's input, because they may have responsibilities that to them take up a lot of their time or have a great impact on their job, but you don't even realize they're spending that much time on, or that it's that much impact on their day. So you want to get their impact when you're talking about that. You also want to know your para's level of skills and the competence in performing a task. Sometimes what we think is an easy task may be kind of complicated to somebody who's never done it or doesn't really understand what you're asking for. I am a proponent of ongoing training, and I'll talk about this again in this presentation, but anytime you can provide training to your para, I think you should. Not only does it recognize them as a professional educator, it says your time is valuable, and I want to use your time to give you more skill. It's not a commendation on lack of training. It's really a matter of we as teachers get more training. We like to get increased training. We also want to give our paras that opportunity. So you might have develop a para handbook. The district I worked in, we had a handbook for paras. Excuse me. It had information about the school. It had information about the floor plan of the school. So if you'd say take a student to room 104, they had in their book a map of the school. They knew where things were, where the counselor's office were. For example, they had a list of school personnel that they might be working with, or they might be referred to by name. There's also information on confidentiality, who you can talk to, those kinds of things. Might have information on who the student's IEP case manager is, if you as the classroom teacher aren't at that person. So you will also want to have information on there about problems, who to go to, who to talk to. If they don't feel like they can talk to you, who should they go to talk to? So you want to make sure that you're teaming with all the school and all the itinerant staff that are coming into your classroom, so they all know what you expect of your para. So not just your para knows what to expect, but everybody that enters your classroom knows what your expectations are of your paraprofessional. Convey your role as the instructional leader. I was laughing and telling Benjamin and Rachel that, my para and I were partners, but we weren't equal partners. I was the 52% and they were the 48%. Some days, though, truthfully, I was 70% of the instructional team and they were 30%. Because, as you know, the responsibility lands on you. If something is not done well, something's not done right, something's not done, period, confidentiality is violated, it falls on you because you're in charge. So while you're partners, you're the controlling partner. So think of it in those respects. You're the controlling partner, but it's still a partnership. Okay. Be proactive regarding classroom and behavior management. So because I was in the classroom for a long time and then I became an administrator, really started knowing how to pick my battles with kids. And some people feel that you have to address every single perceived misconduct. I don't. I think it's important to know what to ignore and when to ignore it. And it's important that if that's the model of behavior management you're going to use, that your para know that that's what you're going to do. Here are the non-negotiables. Here are the violations that we will never cease to recognize and call a child's attention to. And here are the things that are going to slip. For me, cussing, I worked in high schools. So I didn't send a kid to the office every time there was a swear word. I would do things like, do you kiss your mother with that mouth? Or, there's old people here and we don't want to hear that language. Sometimes that's all you needed is a little prompt. But for some kids, the more you punish, the more you're going to see that misbehavior. So be clear that you and your para are on the same page. Also, how your classroom expectations are going to be communicated to your students. If you're in elementary school, it might be very different than if you're in a high school. If you're in a room with students with high needs, it may be a matter of practicing reciting those classroom code of conduct items every day until they're well learned. But what are the roles of the teacher? Is the teacher the dad in this picture and the para is the mom? I think that's a bad setup where the teacher's the bad guy and the para is the good guy. That negates the authority of the para, and it really puts all the responsibility for student conduct on the teacher. So you might think about how you want to negotiate that setup. When does teacher step in, and what can the para handle without the teacher? You want to be explicit about the para's role in supporting student behavior with classroom expectations. So it's sometimes helpful to kind of talk about what happens. What happens if a kid cusses? What happens if a kid throws something? What happens if a kid comes in tardy? What happens if a kid hits another kid? So, in some school districts, the paras are the ones that have the training in the physical management of students. So in that case, maybe it's the para that steps up if there's a physical incident, that the para steps in and the teacher stands back and provides the support for that. But that should be discussed ahead of time and not in the moment of the crisis. I encourage you to strongly discuss confidentiality with your paras. There's this saying, knowledge is power. This is true. The more knowledge you have, the more powerful you might feel. And this includes your para. They're going to know things about your student's diagnoses, if there are diagnoses. They're going to know things about the family situation. They're, of course, going to know about the child's classroom performance, the relationship with other students. This is, a prescription for gossip. And, there are some people that love to get in the teacher's lounge and talk about kids. There are some people who like to get in a situation and moan and groan about how awful their students are. This is not acceptable. If your parent needs to vent, you're the person to vent to, or another special educator who shares that child. Okay, but you might find it really helpful to provide some examples of situations and easy to use responses. Like, for example, if they're in a classroom or the teacher's lounge and somebody's trying to get information, you might say, why don't you talk to the teacher that I work with, Mrs. Smith? She can give you more information. Or if somebody in town, especially if you're living in a smaller community, says, oh, you have that Smith kid in your class. What are they like? Then they may just have to say, I know you're interested in this child, but I'm not really supposed to talk about the students at school. So give them some maybe nice outs, but it's never okay for them to even really share information that a student's enrolled in special education. That's a matter of confidentiality. I would also talk to them about need to know. Now, while the general education teacher that a student goes into their class, that teacher has a need to know certain things. So the confidentiality, I can't say that word today, obligations are different than if it's your next door neighbor. Even my own family will say to me, my son said to me the other day, Mom, Asher has this friend, and I know there's something different about him. I said, really? And that's all I said. I just left it as really. Now, maybe I know this child, maybe I don't. My son has no clue. And we're going to leave it there, right? And he will be less likely to bring up another child from the district I used to work in when the answers are always, oh, really? And I may say, oh, really? Why would you say that? Oh, yeah, that's too bad. Or, just like any other random person would respond to that statement. But I'm sure not going to give an indication of whether or not I know that person. Okay, you want to set clear priorities for student learning and communicate these to your parent. Okay, setting priorities involves not just listing specific tasks, but also telling them why these tasks are important. Okay, these tasks may be important because they address a specific need of the students, but some people have trouble understanding the need to teach someone else a task if they don't understand the purpose for a task. So it may be that you want a child to sound out some letters. And they're like, why do they need to say these phonemes? It doesn't make any sense. But maybe you've got a long-term goal, okay? And maybe they're working with something with their speech pathologist and the parent doesn't know about it. So it's helpful to help them understand, and it gives more meaning to their task, okay? So give frequent constructive feedback. If you see that they're doing something well, let them know that they're doing well. Never be afraid to praise anybody. I, as an adult, enjoy positive feedback as much as anybody else. I like it when my boss says you did a good job. I like it when my boss says that I have a strong understanding of something. But I also appreciate it when my boss accepts that there are areas that I don't have information on, that I'm not very up to date on, and respects that and either moves on from that to another area or offers me support and says, would you like more training? Would you like me to explain this to you? Whatever. But I like feedback, and I think everybody does. I had somebody tell me once they couldn't work with a certain coach, and I said, why can't you work with that coach? And they said, well, they always tell me what I'm doing wrong. They never tell me what I'm doing right. Or if I'm doing something wrong, they don't tell me how to correct that. So keep that in mind. And just because you think somebody should know something doesn't mean they do know something. And I say a lot of times, especially when I'm working with adults, I'll say, you probably already know this, but, okay? So it recognizes their wealth of knowledge and that I may be repeating something. But it also acknowledges my need to tell them anyway, okay? And we do have that need. Sometimes we know they know, but I still need to say it, so I know I said it, just in case they didn't know. And so you're probably getting the gist of what I'm saying. So formative or frequent feedback can really help an individual grow and let them know what they're doing correctly. And when they start building skills, give them that feedback, let them know, okay? Oh, I'm missing slide. Hang on, there we go. Okay, be aware of how you communicate. If you're always telling somebody that they're doing something poorly or they need to do it differently, pay attention to that. If your tone of voice is sounding irritable, pay attention and switch that up so that you are coming across more positive and more of a partner than a boss. Okay, we all appreciate that partnership, that feeling that we're all in it for the same end result. Okay, delegate decision making to your parent whenever possible. Find some tasks that your parent can do without you. You know, sometimes it's a matter of scoring writing assignments, of maybe putting together some assignments for the next day, maybe timing an activity, taking children to run errands. I always say, you know, they'll say, which way do you want me to go? I don't care which direction they take as long as they get to where they're going, right? So whether they go down this hallway or that hallway, let parents make their own decisions. They're adults. They won't get lost. Or if they do, they'll figure it out. Okay. I am somewhat of a perfectionist. So I understand that this can really hinder my delegation of tasks. So I've had to learn to say to myself, doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter if your husband drives to the restaurant the wrong way. Okay, maybe it's not the wrong way in his mind, but it's the wrong way in your mind. But it doesn't matter as long as you get there. So think in terms of, is this my issue or is it really an issue? Does it need to be done perfectly or can it just be done well or acceptably? Okay, so pay attention to your needs versus reality. Okay. Establish formal planning timelines. I throughout my career, I have found it helpful, regardless of who I'm working with, be it special ed coordinators, be it teachers, be it paraprofessionals. If I have a time every week that is theirs, that we meet every Tuesday at 8 o'clock for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it may be. But that is their time. That is the time we meet. And sometimes we have an agenda and sometimes we don't have an agenda. And if you don't have things that you need to get done during that period, it's a nice time to just build that relationship and share appreciation for one another. Okay. But taking that time to plan and be together is really, really important. I had a boss once that we had a set time that we would meet weekly, and she was always canceling on me. Or I'd get in there and she'd spend the entire time talking about what was going on in her job, what was going lousy. And I felt very unsupported. I think that she did believe in me, and I think that she did support what I did if she knew what I was doing. But I never felt that I had her ear and that she was truly invested in my work. So think about that and make sure that you find time for sharing with your para one-to-one. Okay. Hold brainstorming sessions. So sometimes there's something that you want to do that's new and different, and you're not sure how to go about it. Sometimes you want to do something fun. Sometimes there's a problem in the classroom or an activity that isn't going well or anything. And, take the opportunity to brainstorm. I always say, throw out your idea. It might be awful, but that's okay. It gives us something to build on. And sometimes I'll be in a meeting and I'll say, this is a really bad idea, but it's the only one I have. Maybe somebody else can take this and run with it, come up with better ideas. Okay. Be sure to include your para whenever you can. There are some districts that don't have paras come to IEP meetings, and there's other districts that value that. When it is appropriate, have your para involved. Sometimes parent-teachers meetings are a good way to have paras involved. I think parents want to know who's working with their child. Okay. And if there's a para that works extensively with a specific student, they may have things to share that maybe are little nuances that you may not even be aware of. Okay. But never underestimate the value of the input from the para. Okay. I've already talked a little bit about training and how useful that can be and how important it is. So paras have to get additional 6 hours of training annually after they complete the required Tier 2 training. We have conferences throughout the state every year. And I encourage you to send this. You can use special education money to do so. If you talk to your special education director, they can let you know this. But I think that it's really important and very meaningful to allow paras to go to meetings where they're meeting other paras, okay? Or to even teach them new skills like data collection or, reflecting on tracking progress, those kinds of things. Okay, use collaborative problem solving. This is similar to brainstorming, but it's much more specific and much more of a process, okay? So when you have a difficult decision or you want to start something new, then you might spend your time kind of systematically, and that's the difference between collaborative problem solving and brainstorming, is this is a systematic way for a team to work through problems. So you might start with what's not working. Like, where are we now? Where do we want to be? What do we want to happen? And then What can we do to make it better? This is where you do the brainstorming. Brainstorming is part of the collaborative problem solving process. This is where you're generating ideas, you're throwing out bad ideas and coming up with better ideas. Okay. And then say, of all these solutions, including the bad ones, what has the greatest chance of achieving our goal? Okay. What's the easiest? What can we do? What's within our control? What's least disruptive? Sometimes you've got this great idea and you're like, we don't have the money to do it. And then go, okay, how can we do it without additional staff, additional materials, additional whatever, right? Brainstorm on that. And then once you make your decisions, develop an action plan. Decide who's going to do what, where, and when. Okay. That way it's very clear what your role is and what their role is in this problem solving process. And there are no unclear expectations. You want your expectations to be very clear. This is crucial in preventing problems. Okay. Then you're going to circle back and say, did the plan achieve our desired outcome? When you're talking about who, what, when, and where, you're going to start looking at and tracking your outcomes. Okay. You want to integrate your paraprofessional into the entire classroom. Rotate responsibilities. If you have several paras, you have a number of students with great needs, with high needs, rotate the paras. Understand that a couple of things can happen. First off, you can burn a para out really fast if they're with a difficult child all day, every day. Also, you can create an over-reliance on a para by a child and their disregard for interactions with the teacher or their peers. So you don't want to build a para bubble, is what I call it, around a student where all of their interactions are only with that para, because that para isn't going to live with them forever. Okay? Be open. Paras will offer valuable insights and they can enhance your program quality. Pay attention to that. Ask, what do you suggest? Do you have thoughts on her participation to promote collaboration? And the last one, incorporate laughter into everyday. Learning should be fun. Your classroom should be fun. Although some days can be really stressful, student behavior is reduced, job satisfaction is increased when there's humor and laughter in the classroom. Okay, I'm going to move into collaborating with parents. You've heard this. We've said this. We don't always believe this, that parents are often the most knowledgeable people around about their child. Okay, we know this. We hear this. We're told this, but we don't often believe it. We think, oh, we know this child better. Well, if you don't believe it, fake it. Just fake it. Okay, by maintaining open lines of communication, you can gain a lot of insight, not just about how to teach their child, but what's going on in the home. Okay, what skills that child might need that you didn't realize they don't have. I already talked about kids being barometers. If there's a lot of stress in the home, you may be seeing it at school. I would much rather a parent come to me and say, things are not good at home. Grandma died, or we have, dad is sick, or there's a divorce occurring, or whatever. I'd rather be told that up front than wonder, why the heck is this child acting out all of a sudden, right? I'd rather the parent feel that they can be open and honest with me so I can address that, rather than have a relationship with a parent that is defensive and they don't want to tell me anything. On the other hand, I don't want to be a parent's counselor either. So you really have to maintain that professional distance with a parent too. Okay. But when parents and teachers collaborate, you can treat the whole child. You can work with the whole child and address their emotional needs too. Okay. So research shows over and over again that strong parent-teacher communication positively impacts student outcomes. One of the reasons is if my mama likes you, I'm more likely to like you. And we all hear those kids that say, my mom said, or my dad said. And when that comes out of their mouth in a negative way, you can bet your relationship with that child is going to be more difficult. Okay? When you have a positive relationship with the parent, not only are they informed of their child's progress and they feel like they've got some control in this experience, they also are more likely and more willing to support that learning at home. Okay? And as I've said, it increases the social emotional development of the child. Collaboration builds trust and reduces anxiety. For the most part, especially parents with little kids have a lot of anxiety about sending their kids to school. And I will tell you, I get a lot of phone calls from a lot of mamas, and they come off as angry. And I just tell myself to keep my mouth shut and listen and do a lot of uh-huhs, oh my's, right? Because they are scared. They are scared of turning over their baby and that baby being abused, neglected, ignored, whatever. Okay? So the more that you just listen, the more you're going to build trust and reduce anxiety, because what that listening, that active listening tells that parent is that I care about you and how you feel, and I care about you trusting me, and I care about your child. Okay. And I'm going to be a partner with you. Now I might be the 60% partner and they only have 40% in this educational journey, but we're still a partnership. Okay. Be open and honest. If you didn't do something you were supposed to do, be honest about it. But if a parent feels that you're covering up something, their anxiety is going to shoot through the roof. And sometimes what you see is madness and anger is really anxiety. So we want to keep those parents calm. We want to reduce their anxiety by building that relationship. Okay. And also help them understand their parents' rights. Okay. Help them advocate appropriately for their child. You know, I'll have mamas and daddies call me and I'll say, when you call the school, be nice, because you will be heard if you're nice. If you call them with the tone of voice you started with me, it's going to be hard for them to hear you. I tell parents that because it's true. Okay? Special education teachers have legal and ethical obligations to keep parents informed. So it goes beyond those IEP goals and that progress report. If there's a change, you have to let parents know. And sometimes you want to let them know about changes that are just small. The more time you can find to communicate, the stronger that relationship is going to be. Okay, so here are some strategies. Open communication. Set up regular communication. Maybe have a newsletter you send out on Friday. It doesn't have to be extensive. Maybe it's just an email with a couple of bullet points. Involve parents in the IEP process. Give them ample notice. If you can share a draft, share it. If a parent asks for the draft to be shared, share it. Otherwise, it looks like you're hiding something. And let parents know this is just a draft. This is just my ideas on paper. This is not set in stone. And ask the parents for input. Even if you don't plan to use that input, act like you're going to, okay? It will make everybody's life so much better. Practice empathy and active listening. Like I said, most of what you're dealing with is a scared parent, okay? And they're mad because they're scared, okay? Recognize cultural and linguistic diversities. We may think we understand diverse families, their diverse cultures. We probably really don't. So go on the side of error and ask parents what they need culturally, okay? Again, treat parents as the experts about their child, okay? Be proactive in personalized communication. Share positive things. My daughter-in-law told me the other day, she said, my granddaughter's teacher called her. And she's like, oh no, here we go. Because my granddaughter has a very big personality. And so she was expecting big personality information, i.e. negative. And the teacher said, I've been teaching 17 years, and I don't know that I've ever, going to get choked up on this, that I've ever enjoyed a student as much as I enjoy your third grade daughter. I was hearing about that. My daughter-in-law was, can you believe this? We are so happy that she's in this teacher's classroom. Oh my gosh, we found a teacher who gets her, you know. And my granddaughter is like the perfect child in this classroom. So understand, not only now are the parents on the side of the teacher, if that teacher calls and my granddaughter's done something bad, she better watch out when she gets home because the parents are listening to the teacher. You see how that works? So be sure that you're sharing good news and not just bad news with parents. Then when you have to share the bad news, it's coming from an ally, not the enemy. Okay? So try to build trust in every moment. Consistently be positive in your interactions, even if you're sharing something that's negative. Okay? Here are some challenges. Communication barriers. Be sure that you're using plain language and not special ed jargon, okay? Be sure that if you have differences in perspectives or explanation, that you facilitate an open dialogue about that and you try to problem solve and you don't cut them off, okay? Understand that there are parents who do not get paid when they miss work. And they may have bosses that are very rigid about them missing work or changing shifts. So be creative and when you can offer times for IEPs. If you can have the IEP a little early and do it in the evening at parent-teacher conferences, great. If you can get the parent on a Teams or Google Meets call during their lunchtime, wonderful. You may have to have somebody cover your class for a little while, but you've got the parent involved. Okay. Also, I understand that some parents really don't have any information. They don't know what to expect about special education. And again, they're scared. The district that I worked in, we set up a series of training for parents on different topics, and it was so well received. Because parents just want to know what's going to happen when my third grade daughter gets to high school. What's going to happen when my son wants to play athletics, right? Okay, now we'll talk quickly about collaboration with general education teachers. This is tricky. Remember, collaboration means working together so that you're fostering an inclusive environment and a supportive environment for that special education student when they go into the general education classroom. Okay? You want to effectively address the diverse learning needs between that child and the classroom environment. Okay? Think in terms of pooling expertise. You have certain skills. The gen ed teacher has certain skills. Think in terms of what skills you have, what skills they have, and how you can build on those skills to provide an education for a child with special education needs. Okay? Pardon?
We're not. Just think ahead. We'll go home first. But.
Okay, somebody's microphone is on. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I was hearing something else. Okay. Where was I? Okay, so well-coordinated collaboration between educators helps build an environment where a child feels supported and overall the school's educational mission is achieved. Okay. You're going to share your specialized knowledge with the general education teachers. This will build differentiated instruction for those special education students, but also understand that this will help the gen ed teacher also differentiate instruction for other learners in their classrooms. You can help you craft a personalized learning plans so the teachers can provide a personalized education for the child that addresses their strengths, their challenges, and their goals. Kind of getting in a rush because we're running out of time. You want to look at how adaptive technology can be incorporated into the general education classroom and how gen ed teachers can feel comfortable with adaptive tech in their classroom. You want to enhance classroom management. If you have the same expectations for behavior in your classroom as the general education teachers do, that will facilitate that for the students where they're not having to wonder what the expectations are from one classroom to the other. It will be much easier for them. It'll reduce the behavioral incidents and increase their engagement. You want to promote inclusive practices by enabling general education teachers to adapt their curriculum. That's what collaboration is about. It's about you working with the general education teacher to adapt curriculum and materials to make sure that your students have success in that classroom, in that general education classroom. Whoops. You want to advocate for equity. You want to advocate for an environment where your students receive the same type of recognition and feel the same support as other children. You want the educators to feel supported so that they're not nervous about having your special education students in their classroom. You want them to feel empowered to know what they need to do for that student. Okay, you want to cultivate acceptance and empathy by respecting that some teachers feel nervous, anxious about having a student with special needs in their classroom. You will forge a relationship with them that makes it more likely that they're going to work to keep that child in the classroom. And you want to maximize student potential. So ultimately, collaboration ensures that the student's potential is maximized and celebrated in the general education classroom. Okay, practical tips. You want to keep the lines of communication open. Talk, 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 talk. Check in. Okay. Collaboration is not monitoring. Collaboration is meeting with that general education teacher. Set clear expectations. I advocate for setting up meeting times. We're going to meet every other week. We're going to meet once a week. I'm going to prepare these materials. And this will help cultivate mutual respect. If they know what you expect of them and what they can, and they know what they can expect of you. Okay, you're going to establish common goals. Where do you want to see these students go? Where are they now? Where are they going to end up? And celebrate that diversity. Each of you and the general education teacher have diverse strengths and skills. Bring those to the table and recognize that there are varied approaches that can enhance the overall learning for children. Okay. I am flying through these. Okay. Have a student-centric approach. Understand the student success is the key. That is the reason for collaboration. You want to share the learning culture. You want your student, your special education student, to have as close as possible to the same experience as other students. Okay. You can foster that culture by educating the general education teacher on what those children need. Be open-minded. Be willing to listen to ideas from the general education teacher. Have creative problem solving and accept innovative teaching methods. Be flexible. Recognize that you have to make changes and rarely are things going to work the first time. Encourage the general education teacher to be flexible too. When something isn't working, reflect on it and move towards improving it. Don't stop. Don't give up. Don't say, this isn't working. We need to just put the kid back in special education classroom. Okay. Planning is everything. Okay. knowing what curriculum the student's going to be working on, knowing what needs to be adaptive and or modified is important, knowing what materials the student needs is important, and you can only get that through planning. Okay, identify the common goals, and again, the goal is student success. Assess the individual needs for each student that you're collaborating with a general education teacher about, and make sure that there's a comprehensive understanding of what a child needs for this personalized planning. Plan inclusive lessons. Don't move all the special education kids into one group. Make sure that the curriculum is accessible to all students and they're able to have the same experiences in that classroom as the others. Allocate resources. In some cases, that means maybe the paraprofessional needs to go down and work in the general education class. So think in terms of what is necessary to make sure that the child achieves that learning goal, and set progress measures. Don't just wait till the end of the semester and look at the progress report and go, oh, this isn't working. Part of that collaboration is the progress monitoring. All right, questions? I have about 2 minutes.
Righty. Well, there was one question in the chat about if the presenter's PowerPoint would be available. So is that something that we can make available, or?
Yes, Rachel, I'll send it to you and you can send it out.
Okay. That sounds great. I know, Dr. Grissom, you have to get to another meeting, and we appreciate you being here so much. So if there's no other questions, we'll let Dr. Grissom go.
I'm seeing thank yous, and you're welcome. I enjoyed it. Sorry, it was rushed. Bye-bye.
Now, before everybody else logs off, they wanted me to remind you that if you are one of the Spark participants completing the CEC modules, that the first expert check-in is October 1st at 3:30. You will need to access this link through the module. A separate link will not be sent. Okay. If there are no other questions, I appreciate you all staying late. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everybody.
So where do we access the Spark modules? I'm seeing that question. Oh, that is a great question. The date and the time? So the date and the time is October 1st at 3:30. That's the expert check-in. And then you should have received an email with information on how to access the Spark modules from the CEC.
Is it the CEC modules?
Yes. It's the CEC modules. So I know it was the information that Yasmin had sent out.
Yeah.
Okay, we can follow up on that, Melissa. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next month.
Sure thing, Casey.